Thanks for joining. Oh, I have like a mystery tarot card in my wrong deck.
Hello, there we are.
Good to see you. I was just preparing some cards just in case there,
Yes,
just in
yes.
case so we could use it. And I found like a mystery card in it, but it's
Did
kind of
you?
it's not so much of a nice one. It's Eight of Swords. Doesn't look too friendly there, but
Oh, what do you mean mystery? Is it from another deck?
yeah, it was just I was shuffling and it was the wrong card in this deck.
Oh, that's
Maybe
so
that's how a lot of
interesting.
us are feeling right now.
That's right. Or maybe that's why
Yeah.
people are tuning in, that maybe we can provide some comfort.
Yeah, I kind of last minute decided to call this like life lessons, like spiritual chat about life lessons that
I
we've both
love it.
learned.
I am here for it. I just put out a podcast with a wonderful friend and colleague of mine who's a
Yeah.
death doula.
Oh,
And she's so fantastic. She's from Atlanta, Georgia, and has traveled all over the United States and beyond to
yeah.
sit with people who are passing. And so she and I recorded a podcast on all of the lessons we've learned in our work with
Oh,
death
really?
and people who are dying or have died, or with
Wow.
people who've lost someone important. And we feel like death is the greatest teacher.
Yeah, that is so
Hmm.
interesting on so many levels. Because I know
Yes.
you and I talked a lot about that in terms of our own selves and kind of
Hmm.
the new versions of ourselves that emerge. And so that's kind of what this call, I think, started off of, actually, that conversation.
Yeah.
But I do want to allow us time to like introduce ourselves and like
Yes.
what we're doing, because we could easily just jump into this for like the next hour easily. But yeah, if you want to start with a quick intro, kind of maybe even what projects you're working on right now and
Sure.
you're looking forward to in the future.
Sure. I'm Katie Benway, and I am a psychic, a medium, a certified life coach, and I have a business called Intrepid 11. And I have been doing this for about 15 years professionally. I was born this way. I have seen dead people since I was a little kid. It often interrupted my life and my sleep. Never set out to have any kind of, business or to do this professionally. And in my 20s, I really kind of got a hold of it and understood what was going on with me. And so I started out for years just doing readings and worked with tens of thousands of people, not just in this country, but beyond. And over time, really felt like I wanted to be a teacher, less than a reader. And I morphed a lot of my offerings into kind of a coaching model. And I work, I would say, with a lot of people find me because of death. Someone has died, someone is dying. And so I do a lot of ongoing work with people who are processing physical death. And of course, physical death helps us learn about the deaths and rebirths we have in our own lives.
Right.
So I wrote a book, I have a podcast, and the podcast is pretty new. I'm so excited about it. And like you said, I do this work and I'm in the trenches with people, but it helps me understand abiding life lessons and why our souls are here and what we're here to do and learn. And that's really my focus these days, is talking about that and helping people with that.
Yeah, and for since no one's really going to even know how we met, I wanted to share a little bit of that too, because
Yeah.
I think it was kind of, I guess, divinely guided that we
Hmm.
would connect, because the moment we even had our first conversation, I was like, okay, I feel like you're on that road ahead of where I'm kind of seeking to go in some aspects. And there were a lot of synchronicities with some of our stories, even though in our own ways, but so
Yeah.
many similarities, at least on a like lessons or life lessons front. And yeah, so we
Hmm.
met through Sabrina Victoria, who is an amazing community builder, especially for females, women, entrepreneurs. And I think I met her back in 2020 or 2021,
Hmm.
actually, because Aussie, my partner, and I were both on her panel, something about like the LGBT community, and I think it was meant for like allies. And so we
Yeah.
participated in her panel, and that's how I stayed connected with her. And I'm not actually sure how you connected with her.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that probably around the same period of time.
Okay.
I cannot for the life of me remember how we came across each other.
Yeah.
Maybe it was through speaking. Maybe I was speaking
Okay.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And we got connected. I was on her podcast,
Mhm.
and we really hit it off because she's got kind of a harrowing life story,
Yeah.
talks a lot about growing up Jehovah's Witness and leaving that religion, and reclaiming her life, came through a domestically violent relationship. And so we really hit it off in terms of, I just really love and appreciate and celebrate the people who are leaving systems that
Right.
separate them from their spirit. And so we hadn't talked in a couple of years, but we were connected. And then right before I think you and she reconnected, she and
Yeah.
I just had a quick update call. It's slated to last 20 minutes. It lasted 90.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, I got an email introducing me to you, and the
Yeah.
rest is history. I think we just hit it off, and
Ah. Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
so great. Yeah, I think I actually even found out about the panel through my friend Charmaine, who was
yeah.
actually on the Ultimatum with Aussie and I. She was my friend who joined us. I
Okay.
wish she got more airtime, but that's another story. But I think she's who connected us to her, and I've just stayed in touch with her, and it's been great. But
That's wonderful.
yeah, I think there's so much that we've connected on in terms of some of our life journeys of kind of rebranding ourselves, not like just our businesses, but
Yes.
ourselves, our identities, how we show up on an internal level and kind of with our more intimate networks versus that identity out to, the public world and what that looks like. And
Yeah.
I also wanted to touch on some of the community that we've built as a result of that. So I
Mhm.
know that's a lot. So we'll kind of
Yeah.
start. I don't know. Maybe I'll pull a card and see where we
Yes.
should start with
Do
this
it. Do
conversation.
it. Where and when did you learn tarot, Sam?
So I actually cannot even remember
Mm.
how this happened, but it was actually in 2015 that I bought my first deck of cards, the Rider Waite deck on Amazon. And I just cannot for the life of me like remember how I got to that point where I was ordering a deck.
Yeah.
And I actually was kind of playing around with it, doing what I think a lot of people try to do is memorize every single card, which is like
Hmm.
impossible. And so I just started kind of trying to do readings that way without not knowing anything about what I was doing.
Hmm.
Um, and I wasn't exactly around other spiritual people, and I really didn't know what that meant either. And so I actually put it down for like 5 years until COVID happened.
Mm.
And that's when I started to meet more LGBT people. So spirituality is it's not something that people are afraid of in those
Yeah.
spaces. So
That's wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, that's actually when I started to really explore it. It was probably in 2020, and
Hmm.
I eventually took a course in 2022. So
Yeah.
yeah, I did a certification course, but
That's fantastic. A good friend. She is a really gifted tarot reader, intuitive. She
uh,
has a master's degree in Jungian studies, as in Carl
oh,
Jung.
cool.
And of course, the tarot is filled with all kinds of symbols and archetypes, and
Yeah.
Jung overlaps with that work. But she was the one when I was sort of coming to terms with my psychicness.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, my sleep was interrupted all the time.
Right.
She was the one I turned to very privately and quietly.
Mhm.
And it was in like my early 20s. And she started working with me. And I love tarot. Tarot's not, I don't use like a tool like that,
Yeah.
but that's how she helped me understand, frankly, who I am and what was happening to me.
Yeah.
And it was just so helpful. So I have such a fondness for tarot because through my friend Anna, it helped me learn about myself and accept myself.
Yeah, and I think for myself too, like I always loved playing cards as a kid. Like I would just, I loved shuffling. I loved like dealing cards. And so for me, it feels so natural to like use the cards and touch them and, you know, use them. And then my dad went to art school. So even for me, like art visuals are
Yeah.
really meaningful. And so for me, I love looking at the artwork on the cards too, that kind of help. And I think you'll appreciate these if you haven't seen this deck before. This
Oh,
is a
wow.
magician card. So this one came in the upright or in the reverse.
Mm.
Then alongside that, I got the Three of Cups. So
Mm.
I feel like this is so aligned with actually what we wanted to talk about, which is kind of like that
Yeah.
disempowered state and feeling
Yeah.
like we cannot create that magic or envision the world that we're wanting, and how community and coming together is really going to be our path forward, so that we don't feel this isolation and like we have to do everything alone. So
That's right.
I think that's totally where we were going to be going with today. But yeah, I'd actually like to hear a little bit about how your community is going and how that came to be. And I guess maybe I'll save part two till after.
Yeah. So, like I said, like for 15 years, I have been really fortunate. I've just worked with a lot of people. My business grew word of mouth. There was a point at which I had a 2-year wait list for sessions, and that is lovely and a compliment. It was also incredibly overwhelming to me. And in painful in the sense that I knew I could never get to all of these people. And people need and want help and assistance. And so that was what really propelled me toward trying to create offerings that would reach a larger number of people, or maybe be attractive. You know, if you can't quite get me one-on-one, you could be part of like this program or that community. And candidly, I've tried a lot of different things over the course, really since COVID, right? COVID put us all online. And there were things that worked and there were things that didn't. But here's one of the things I really learned. So I was leaning into group work and that kind of style as sort of like a business response, yes, and as a sort of a take care of me response. But what I discovered was what happens in a group setting is so powerful and magnificent. And so people who have been part of my workshops or who have come to I do a lot of in-person retreats, the thing I always say is I build the agenda lightly. Of course, we have themes and things like that, but I know that there is always a theme that emerges for the group. Because when we come together, there's a reason we're brought together. There's a reason certain people sign up for this retreat or that one. And we come together, and then our guides come together. Right. And our guides, I really think our guides bring us together because there's something thematically that we're working on in community. And so it's so humbling, right? Like, not only was it the right thing for me to do kind of group settings, but I'm always humbled by the spirit world because there's a much larger plan. Right. So I love the getting of people together and what comes out as a group theme, and the way that we learn together by honoring each other, listening to each other when messages overlap, right? And I can be saying something to you and the person next to you is like, that hits me here and here's why. I love the ability of the group to honor one another. In terms of moving the needle with healing and self-awareness, it's huge. So with the podcast that I launched recently, the podcast is called the Intrepid Soul Podcast. It's on Apple and Spotify. I launched the Intrepid Soul Collective, which is sitting on Patreon. And that is where there's community. And I have all kinds of things there, like guided meditation ceremonies. I go live there, bonus stuff from the podcast. But my hope is that people won't feel so alone, and feel like, instead, realize, like, there was this great thing. I was listening to Glennon Doyle's podcast the other day, and she was referencing, and I cannot remember the author she was referencing, but she had, this author had talked about we are not the resistance. The other side is the resistance. This idea that the truth is love. The truth is the river of life force and love. And we forget that. We forget because we see so much non-love and we think that we're resisting that. But listen, like the truth is that the river of love, the thing that flows through all of our existence is what's true. And anything opposite of that is the resistance. But people forget that. And so I think that there's such value in community and understanding that you are absolutely not alone when you have a big heart, when you're connected, when you're intuitive, when you're, following source, spirit, soul.
Yeah, I've definitely been on, I wouldn't say call it a campaign, but I don't really know what else to call it,
Yeah.
of like not using like-minded. And I try to bring that up whenever it feels like it makes sense to do so, because I think sometimes we're so used to just repeating these like buzzwords that we hear, and it's like-minded, like-minded, and it's because we find ourselves in these spaces where there is so much I guess non-like-mindedness is how we're interpreting it and why we're having such challenging experiences, like within the workplace or within our family units, or maybe even friends that we were really close to, and now there's just kind of this disconnect. And I like to also remind people like-minded is actually how we got us to where we are now and why we continue to be where we are.
Right.
And so it's valuing open-mindedness and what you said, the open-heartedness, like having values, but not so, like in our lanes values, that there is no opportunity for expanding our perspectives. And
That's right.
I feel like that's also one of the things that I've tried to approach in my community building is it's not a bad thing to have standards. And I say that with air quotes, in who we invite into our spaces or what spaces we're entering into. And I think so many people can probably identify with you might even think, oh, if I, work at a nonprofit, for example, I'm just going to be so surrounded by all these people who have the same values as me and everything's going to be good. And then they find themselves in the same kind of toxic work environments, the same structures and everything. And so, it's like moving away from that so that we can be open to what else is out there. And I think that's kind of what you're saying as well in your community. It's like that openness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I learned that so firsthand working with so many individuals. I would often say I wish people understood how common or how ununique we all are. Here's what I mean by that. Because we're all struggling with the parts of us that are most authentic and how to pull those through and get engaged and embodied with those. We have all been through life-changing events that have brought us to our knees. Like there is so much commonality. And of course, the ways that we experience that and express that are what are so completely different. And after years of working one-on-one with people, I really wish because I see, and I see where people judge, or I see where people get hung up, or I see where people's conditioning that they were brought up with are getting in the way. And I'm like thinking, gosh, if you met, so-and-so client I have on Thursday afternoon, you would realize how much you all have in common. Right. And I'll tell you, my work has just humbled me. I'm a different person than I was 20 years ago. I'm really humbled and honored to get to witness people.
Right.
And people are really trying to do the best that they can, and with what they have.
Right. And I know we've talked about human design a little bit because, as you know, I'm kind of finishing up a certification on that as well. But one of the things I'm actually working on is kind of along those lines as well, but more in terms of our energy and how we show up, and how it's easy to say, oh, I'm tired, or I'm burnt out, or I know I'm not on, the right path work-wise, that this is to, pay my bills, and it isn't really my sole purpose work. thing. And so I'm actually working on putting a workshop together that kind of identifies using human design of why are you experiencing this burnout and where are those misalignments with, your so-called enlightened or aligned self, your true authentic self, and where that conditioning has kind of taught you that this part of you that is so key to who you are is not okay or
Yes.
wrong,
Yes.
or you're being projected onto you for
Mm-hmm.
something that doesn't work for someone else, and so it must not work for you.
Yeah. 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 I'm so glad you're doing that. I love human design. I don't know a lot about it. I have
Yeah,
people in my life who do. Um, and I'm so in favor of any kind of tool or system or study
yeah,
or perspective that helps bring you back to the truest part of you. I call that the soul. That's my language. But
right.
I'm so in celebration and encouragement of anything that helps facilitate you getting close to and building a relationship with the truest part of you.
Right. And I'm only going to bring this part up because I know we can have this conversation, but
Yeah.
I've actually had the experience too in some of these like live sessions with the creators or people that I'm taking the programs from. And sometimes it feels very like white centered, like white cisgender centered.
Mm-hmm.
And I have sometimes like decided not to show up live to certain things, and I
Yeah.
rather watch the recordings because it feel like I just have these things that come up for me where I'm like, yeah, only you're not understanding certain experiences that a lot of people have. And so
Mm.
I mean, the price thing is like a whole different story that we can probably go down that rabbit hole, but we won't, of like how under-resourced communities get priced out of having these quality trainings and things, and there's
Right.
still, I think in my opinion, isn't enough opportunity for those to get like scholarships or have people sponsor them and things like that in order to
Mm-hmm.
like advance their careers in that. But I think like part of why I'm also creating some of this content is that I also want to invite other people in who might also feel like that content is not really made for them,
Right.
or they don't get to feel that sense of belonging in those spaces, and so
Mm-hmm.
they might be like me and choose to just not join, um,
Mm-hmm.
to not have to find themselves in maybe uncomfortable situations. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's really important, as leaders, as spiritual leaders, as people who say and count ourselves as spiritual leaders,
yeah.
to acknowledge the systems that are around us.
Hmm.
And, like people are not on equal footing
Yeah.
and do not have the same resources and do not have the same life experiences. And there's these systems that are absolutely just baked into our existence.
Right.
And those systems put folks at a disadvantage, a very significant disadvantage. And it's one thing I know in my work that I have really been trying to do is like this unlearning process. I
Hmm.
have a colleague and a friend, we're about to record a podcast, and she talks about re-indigenizing and this idea that a lot of white spirituality has really claimed and taken these wise, old, deep indigenous traditions that have been there forever.
Right.
And I so appreciate having conversations like that, because that unlearning and that it's sort of getting back to the truth of our soul, of our spirit, of these practices is so important. And it helps create that safe space for other people, a space where people feel like they can belong. I think that's just so fundamentally important.
And I know that you get it, which is why we're
I
having
do.
this conversation.
Yes. And I mean,
Yeah.
I am constantly working on it. So when I say I get it, that's not a finish line that I will ever
Yeah. Yeah.
cross. It's right. I'm always learning and unlearning.
Right.
And I think that's the key, right? Is the unlearning, is the willingness
Oh
to
yeah.
learn, is the willingness to listen. And
Yeah.
that's why I say I'm so fundamentally changed by the work I've done,
Hmm.
because I cannot believe what other people have faced. I cannot believe what other people have been up against. It is heart-wrenching. And it has made me truly organically sitting one-on-one with someone say, how do I be part of the solution? How do I speak up, whether that's publicly or whether that's in a one-on-one setting? Yeah, yeah.
And kind of detaching from all these materialistic ways of looking at things, or, being taught, oh, you always have to like look at your numbers for everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
constant growth is not just an internal thing, but it's like, no, you have to make sure that you're growing in your followers and your sales and so we're like taught to always look at these like growth ideas in a very, I guess, like it serves them. It serves the people who are using algorithms. They're, teaching us to detach away from ourselves, to ignore our intuition. And a lot of times it's like, I even ask myself, like, when is enough enough? And I really went on that journey with Instagram and social media. And we talked a lot about this in our private conversations about like people following us and that journey of like, oh, this is who I was in your eyes, like from what you saw and thought of who I was. And I'm like, I personally think there are a lot of aspects that were properly reflected in some parts of like the media, and then at the same time I'm like, I'm also very different than what is perceived. And so even then I was like, I almost found myself like wanting to see like, oh wow, followers and followers, and it's growing, and comparing, and oh, these people have so many followers, and they were so mean. Or like,
Yeah.
oh, this person has so many followers, or this person doesn't, and people have the very wrong idea of them. And so like I had to play a lot of mind games with myself actually during that
Yeah.
time. And then I thought about it, and I was like thinking of these ultra famous celebrities, for example, and I'm like, so is like 1 million enough? Is 10 million enough? Like
Right.
what is enough? What does that even mean? And that's how I had to start, deconditioning myself there on like what I perceived as successful.
Right. Well, and you were in such a unique situation with Queer Love, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
were putting out there your true self, your real life,
Mm-hmm.
and you and Aussie together. I mean, I think that's like a whole different,
Yeah.
there was like a whole curtain that was pulled back. And I
Oh,
and
God.
I know that part of what you're going through is, so we can have followers and big masses of people, but who are we meant to deeply connect with? And
Right.
that doesn't mean, for instance, that if someone follows me or if someone follows you and they don't choose to engage with our work, that they're
Right.
not a good fit or that we're not
Yeah.
connected. I
Yeah.
really believe that when we do the work of the soul, when we do the work of getting back to our authentic selves, there are
Right.
teachers and like accompaniers, people who accompany us, who
Mm-hmm.
are just like exquisitely and sacredly meant for us in those chapters, in those
Yeah.
seasons.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
and so, but I think that's also why it's so important to be authentic, because
Mm-hmm.
you stepping forward with all of the eyes that are on you because you were on TV and saying, here's my authentic self, there will be a natural series of forks in the road. But
Yeah.
it allows, I mean, I think that when you are this potent, sacred, true version of yourself, it really does magnetize and align the people that you're meant to work with.
Yeah, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
definitely finding that now. And I
Good.
very much got very burnt out in the beginning because I was attracting everyone from anywhere. And
Yeah.
it was like, it burdened me so much that
Mm-hmm.
I had to take really long breaks, and I
Yeah.
was so burnt out. And I would realize, like, I would do a live, like a 1 hour live, and I would be so exhausted after.
Mm.
And it wasn't until a year plus later that I can do a live and I don't feel burnt out. So I'm just
Mm.
like, yeah, I really know very well what it feels like when there's just a mixed jumble of energies that are,
Yes.
that I'm just like soaking in versus when there's more of that alignment.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel as heavy.
that's right. Well, and I think to your point, that it's not our soul or our, and I keep using the word soul, so honor what anybody else, puts in that
Yeah.
space. But what honors our humanity isn't numbers, isn't some huge metric. That's the outside system conditioning us that you are not legitimate or valuable or worthy if you don't hit these goals. And by the way, we all know once you hit a goal, there's 15 more, and
Yeah.
then they change, and then there's subsets.
Yeah.
And I think, the spiritual journey, and whether that's tarot or human design or the psychic work that I do, the accompanying people through profound grief and loss, it's there's like a kind of sacred privacy that happens there. And even if you are in a group of people who share a value of intimacy and vulnerability and safety, that does make it private. It doesn't always have to be one-on-one.
Yeah.
I think that the more that we create those spaces, like that's what community is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's these numbers they don't matter. What matters is how are we able to get connected with people and change each other.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm bringing up human design again, only because I think it's so key in how I've been playing with the energy in a very different way
Yeah.
than it was before, with a different type of intention. And so, kind of learning more about myself in that way. The thing I do like about at least the version of human design that I'm doing, which is quantum human design, it very much emphasizes the play and the experimentation. So I could take on that version of who I am, but I get to play with it and determine what that looks like for me.
Yeah.
So, according to my type, it's like the core wound of my type, which is called the projector, is about being seen. It's literally about being seen, being recognized, being invited by people, and we are often not seen and not recognized. And so there's this core wound of like trying to force being seen, and
Yes.
that doesn't lead to the best outcomes, but you learn a lot of lessons from it.
That's so true. I'm a projector too. That's
Oh,
about
are
as much as I
you?
know.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
I was at, yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, so knowing certain key things like that, I've been playing with it to see how it changes the outcomes. So even in what's called my profile, I'm a 4-1 emotional projector. That means that my opportunities come from my networks, and it comes from
Oh.
intimate connections and referrals and people connecting me to other people and opportunities. So being seen on social media, whether or not it's the so-called right people knowing me for who I am, that's actually where my opportunities come from. It's from connecting with people.
Fascinating. Okay, so I confess I have a human design app. And
Okay.
so it has, I don't know off the top of my head. I could look what I am. And they have this wonderful sort of audio component. I learn
Wow.
best auditorily.
Yeah.
And so I'll just listen to it, and
Yeah.
I've been trying to get through it, but it's so empowering.
Yeah.
It's just so empowering. And
Yes.
isn't this what we are all trying to do? And I think, I mean, I'm 46, so I've lived through some, but not all. um, I think that we're at a time, especially in our country or in human consciousness, where we have come away from ourselves, the soul, humanity, the truth, whatever you want to say. And I really love the emergence or the reclaiming of these old wise tools and energy systems that help us understand ourselves. And again, like I am so down with whatever works for you, with whatever works for
Yeah.
me, whatever helps get you connected to what you are.
Right.
That's so important. I know, here's what I struggle with. I know as a projector that I'm supposed to wait for the invitation.
Mm-hmm.
And I follow all these folks who do human design trying to learn and
Yeah.
understand, because
Yeah.
balancing that with like I'm such a creative and I always have all these ideas coming through.
Right.
And right. And so I've struggled a little bit like, what is that? What does that mean when you own your own
Yes.
business?
Yeah, no, it can be very confusing, but I would love at some point to know what your numbers are and
Yes.
possibly even your incarnation cross. So, like, what that could mean, for example, so for me as a 4-1, it means that the one line is actually very investigative. It's about collecting resources and mastering things and knowing them really, really well before I go out and do whatever the thing is. So
Oh,
when I'm being visible, like on social media, it's going to serve me really well to talk about things that I feel very confident in, that I know in and out, and that I can just speak it out. And
right.
those who are attracted to that message will be invited into my energy, where 70% of the population is of the generator type. They're meant to respond. So they actually need to like hear us say things or
Mm,
show what we're doing so that they can respond to it if it feels aligned to them and then be invited by us. And so as a projector and you being invited in, when people are responding to you, they are then inviting you in to help guide them.
mm,
Energy is very Our energy, I should say, is very penetrating. And so
right.
what happens is if people aren't ready for what we are sharing,
Hmm.
they will feel very vulnerable to the point of they might not have even known that for themselves, and now they're having somebody see them so deeply and they weren't
Right.
ready. So it then like has a
Fascinating.
negative reaction. So
Yeah. So I always said, and this is years ago, that I'm like a lightning rod, and
yeah.
if we're aligned, I'll amplify, or
Yeah.
if it's not aligned, I'll fry. And I don't mean to fry people.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of experience, and I know how to deliver things with love, and I've never been one in my practice, like I never blurt out information. I will never approach someone. I work with people who sanction the process, so I'm deeply respectful. But I've always known that. I mean, certainly in my relationships, like I know that I'm an intense person. I feel really deeply. And I've
Yeah.
always said I either amplify or fry. Like you have one or of two reactions to me. So that makes so much sense.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And knowing these things have been so helpful for me. And I
Mm.
also bring up the incarnation cross because when I've learned more about what that is as well, it helps me stay on track with what I know my purpose is to be. So I
Interesting.
know, for example, that my profile, that 4-1, is uniquely positioned where we're kind of more of like a fixed fate, so to speak, of like,
Mm.
even though I don't know the how or the when or the exactly what, I have a very solid idea of I know that I'm going on this path and nothing's going to
Mm.
take me off this path like it does not matter what comes at me, and I will go through
Mm.
challenges to like get to that end spot that I just feel internally.
This is okay. I've got to have you do a reading for me. I think I want to say I'm like a 5'3". I think that was it. I'm not,
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Those that would be really interesting and unique to it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
incarnation cross for me is about knowing needs. So it's
Wow.
understanding the needs of people, my communities, the collective,
Mm,
humanity, like, and also understanding my needs properly. And then
that's right.
having the communication and
Yes.
providing resources to fill those needs. So
Yes.
knowing that, I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm very on track with what I'm trying to build.
That's so I love every second of this.
Yeah.
That's so fantastic.
Yeah.
So here's a little story, and this is a little bit deep and personal, but let's go there. So a few years ago, I would say 2019, I was hired to headline a conference, like a 2-day conference of hands-on healers.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be in Minnesota, and that of course was the year right before COVID, and then the George Floyd murder.
Mhm.
And so we could not meet in person, and we went online, and it ended up being really fantastic. But the second I signed that contract, so backing up to 2019, but the second I signed that contract, I began having nightmares that I was standing on stage speaking to a group of people, and um, this is where I'll get glossy because it's a little personal. A member of my family in my dream walked into the back of the room and shot me, killed me. I was having these dreams,
Yeah.
and I worked with my coach. I had the best coach. Gosh, he was wonderful. And
Yeah.
I was like, Joe, what the heck is going on? And so we did a lot of parts work and guided meditation around reclaiming the parts of me that were profoundly terrified to be seen, such that I was manifesting and having these dreams that I was killed for being seen, and that being seen left me deeply unsafe. And I still, we did wonderful work, Joe and I really appreciate him. And I continue to work with this organization, and the event was so lovely. But it's something that I really think about, even at times, I don't know, something like this. I don't have those same fears that I did then, but I feel that in my body, and I really honor the parts of me that feel really unsafe to be seen. And here's one thing I'll say too. You are really honest about who you are. And I knew coming into this that this was not going to be a conversation filled with talking points or agreed upon themes, and that you would demand, right? Not in a way that made me uncomfortable, but demand, because of your presence of authenticity, that I be authentic. Right. And so I could feel that part of me a little bit nervous, and I worked through it.
Yeah, it's definitely, what comes to mind is when we stand in who we are, we invite others to do the same. And
yes. Yes.
That is exactly what I feel when you say that. And I appreciate you saying that, and thank you. And I'm grateful that I'm able to do that for you.
I appreciate, and it's so true. I mean, I think honoring people, honoring their experiences, honoring the authenticity of their experiences. I've come to say over the years that I believe two things. I believe that every human wants to be honored. The power of having you and your story witnessed is profound. And I believe that every human is looking for safety. We're looking to feel safe. And we can do that for each other.
Right. I feel like we can have an entire conversation around this, because I have so many thoughts and opinions around what we're going through right now, and how a lot of the people that we kind of perceive as the enemy are going exactly through that still. And we cannot deny that they have certain feelings about what safety means for them, what comfort is, what love is for them. And we just know that they're not ready or willing, and maybe ever, to go on that journey and to understand it. And so I think you mentioned this earlier about kind of flipping that idea of who's actually in truth and in empowerment. I would still believe that it is us, because we have the freedom of choice to be who we are. We can be who we are, can choose to do that, whereas others are completely blinded from it. They don't even realize that they are suppressing their own self so strongly that then comes out in this like ugly hate and, just like a loss of humanity.
Yes. I mean, what is unhealed in us gets projected out. And hopefully what happens is we look at what's being projected out, and we work on it. Here's the thing that I say to people too, because I actually do a lot of past life work with folks and past life regression.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, let me put it in the terms, I'll take responsibility and bring it to myself. Yeah. I hold myself accountable when I'm feeling judgy. I think this: I am one incarnation away from being that which I hate, malign, judge, devalue, push away, etc., etc. And I hold myself accountable, because I believe we incarnate in order to gain experiences, to develop deep empathy, deep understanding, to ultimately use our conscious choice and free will to be people who construct and build and create and do not harm, right? And so there's times when I'm in my snarly, judgy place, and I'll say like, yeah, so Katie, what if you hung on to this, and in your next incarnation, you had to learn this, you had to build up empathy, right? And that's a little bit simplified, I think, when we think about karma, like that may be a little bit simplified, but I like that for myself. I confront myself with that, right? Because if I'm judging someone else, if I'm uncomfortable, it's something that's coming up in me. And so what do I have to look at and learn?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things too that I want to start sharing more of when it comes to like activism, humanitarian efforts, and things like that. Of that idea of like, we cannot judge others for what we're asking from them.
Mm.
And I think that it's such a, like, you really have to think about it when you're like, oh, but they're taking my rights away, or they're not letting me have X, Y, and Z, right? And as hard and as challenging as it is, we also have to remember that they feel equally
Mm.
we are taking away their rights,
Right.
are asking of. And so even in the recognition of that idea, not that we have to agree with everything, not that we have to say, and I do this all the time because I definitely have a more sassy side. And so when I am recognizing my judgment, I have to laugh and say it in a very almost comical way, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm still recognizing it of, oh, I can't stand that I am judging this person so hard, but I am, but I also recognize that,
Mm-hmm.
this is why.
Yes.
And I see it, but I still feel it.
Mm-hmm. It's so hard. I do think that the systems around us that are based on supremacy and misogyny and racism and suppression amplify. I mean, they're really smart, and they turn sort of like the way the human brain and emotions work. They activate us as human beings and turn us against each other. And so when you turn on a human being's fear and then turn on their sense of lack, like there is not enough
Oh, yeah.
resources, money,
Mm-hmm.
food, love, safety, home, whatever, when you turn that on,
Yep.
you make people abandon any kind of agency or sovereignty.
Right.
And that I've really gotten big into sovereignty. I do this sovereignty ceremony every year at the end of December instead of a New Year's ceremony
Yeah.
because we are constantly giving away our power very unconsciously
Yeah.
to the systems around us.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really created to harvest that power. And so I'll lead the ceremony at the end of the year where I guide people to call back what they know they've given away. Maybe there's like been a tangle in a relationship or something.
Yeah.
And then calling back what you don't know you've given away. So I call back all parts of me that I have unconsciously given away or given away out of fear,
Mm-hmm.
given away in order to belong. And coming back to self and saying, I belong to myself first, and it is my innate birthright that I can consciously choose.
Yeah.
It's so, so important. I think this is why self-awareness work. I mean, that's why they try to malign people by saying they're woke. I mean, that's hysterical. I'm so
Right.
proud to be woke. It's really important to know yourself. It's so important to know what sets you off, what makes you abandon yourself, what
Mm-hmm.
freaks you out and makes you think that everyone's the enemy. If we can do that work individually, you start to change things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have so many things like running through my mind as you're sharing. Like, okay, how do I filter this out and like pick one thing? But no, 100%. I think that's where when I was mentioning earlier about sometimes stepping into these spaces and immediately feeling like I don't know if they really get it.
Yeah,
It can
that's
be
right.
really challenging, and a lot of times they're in these spaces and I'm going there and I'm learning what I need to learn, but it is
Mm-hmm.
definitely more on like the tools or
Mm,
it's certain things, but I'm not necessarily going because I feel a connection and that
right.
I really want to like get to know everybody that's there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's it's like it's really an interesting feeling, and I'm like, ooh, I want to explore that for myself as well. And like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, is that me, or is like, what is that? And so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these things are so nuanced. Is that my beeping that is
Your
happening?
smoke alarm? Yeah, it's not. It's
It's
not
a,
mine.
it's like distracting me. I'm like, where is it coming from?
Does that mean that we should pull a card and see what
I
the
was gonna
guidance
say,
is?
yeah, and the universe is reminding us that we have like 10 minutes left.
Do we? Okay. And the sun is moving, so I'm going to go into a different
For the
place in
top
my
of the
house.
hour.
let's let the beeping prompt us to shift.
Oh, that is so funny. Yeah, it really did. It like just kind of wipes my brain. Like, oh no, don't go down this path. Okay, I won't.
That's so interesting. Well, and maybe that is like another conversation, right? For
I think so.
another time, certainly.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I will find out what it is later because I don't see any like colors flashing or anything. So I really don't know. I'm gonna have to go hunting for this mystery sound after.
That's so
Yeah.
that's so funny.
I think the last thing I was gonna say about that particular kind of topic that has come up a lot for me
Mm,
recently is even like another one of those buzzwords that they try to make bad, like woke. But like
mm,
when I talk about like going on a DEI journey, I think not
mm,
everyone always knows what that entails. And I think one of the things I wanted to say about it is that a big part of it was actually learning about other cultures and learning
mm,
about other people's experiences. The way to get out of our kind of box that we were born into or taught to be in is we really have to be able to kind of like see what other people experience so that we can put our experience into context among,
yes.
and they try to make it seem like it's something that it's not, but really it is as much about learning about other people and other ways of being and living and
Hmm.
thinking than it is understanding ourselves on an internal individual level. But
Absolutely. I'll tell you, when I was creating my community, the Intrepid Soul Collective, I was for a few months in deep reflection about some core values that I wanted to bring in as part of the community and part of the work. And curiosity is one of them. I have five core values, and they actually happen to be my personal core values too. But curiosity is one of them. This is what I've learned working with humans. If people aren't curious, it like it's a non-starter.
mhm,
And cultivating, but let me also say this with compassion. It's a non-starter because it's like you cannot move forward. You cannot learn and grow.
right.
But I have a lot of compassion for humans because we have been in a lot of spaces in our lives taught to not be curious. And that there's a lot of messaging that comes in from day one
Right.
that is designed to stamp out curiosity, designed to make us feel ashamed about curiosity, ashamed about exploring. And so we don't develop that core value. We don't, if you think about that, like even kind of maybe as a society, I don't think that at all we value curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And that is another way that the systems are so smart.
Yeah.
It is in our human nature to be curious, to be open. And you're right, like when you learn about other people's experiences and what they go through, that really natural development of empathy opens you up as a human being and contributes to your evolution.
Right.
Hmm.
Definitely working on a post that will probably go out maybe today or over the weekend. I've talked about it before, but it was with the around the last election, and it's just about like politics is not a bad word, religion is not a bad,
Yeah.
and all the things that they tell us not to talk about,
Hmm.
and then you realize why.
Yes.
Of course, they
Yes.
don't want us to talk about it because it's an exchange of ideas and understandings and being able to listen to each other and their different experiences with that compassion or empathy or seeking to understand and that
Hmm.
curiosity. But yeah.
Yes. Can we put a plug in for the Ultimatum Love is Blind petition?
Oh, yes. Well, this one is not related to Love is Blind, but
Oh, the ultimatum. I'm sorry. Yes.
it's specifically the queer love
Hmm.
seasons that has been
Right.
canceled. And so
Mm,
the issue is obviously that it performed really, really well. It had a lot of representation, but they're not canceling the non-queer version. It's only the queer version after 2 seasons. And Tiff talks about this in their video about more of the statistics. And I personally had tracked our season as well in terms of how well it was doing. And it was number one in several countries for quite a while.
wow.
I think the US and Canada for sure. I don't remember which other states or which other countries. But yeah, did really well. And obviously the timing. of media suppression, like
Mm-hmm.
talk show hosts, and with LGBT and trans related anything, trying to suppress that. And so, yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. But we do
Yeah.
have a petition going. I also ended up linking it in my links as well as on my website. So it's pretty easy. My goal is to help us get at least 10,000. Right now, when
Yeah.
I checked this morning, we have 1,800 and it's only been like a couple days. So,
Good.
yeah, any help in signing the petition, sharing it. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to record my video because I need to record my response on it. I just needed more time, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't personally necessarily want another network to take it over because I don't think they're the best equipped to tell our stories. And I really, for me, I see it as like the people asking for what they want and then having us tell our own stories, but we're showing how much there is a need for it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of non-LGBT identifying people loved it. So
Yes,
it's like
absolutely.
doing something.
Oh my, I love watching queer
Yeah,
love stories. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and you know, this kind of representation saves lives, bottom line. Bottom line. And it does so many other wonderful things, but with what's happening in our reality today, we're talking about saving lives.
Oh yeah.
And that's it. That's it, period. End of sentence.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'm going to say in my video when I record it is you would not believe how many therapists had told me that all their clients were using the show to help communicate how they were feeling or
Yeah.
dynamics in their relationships. Couples were using it to talk about things in their relationships. They were pausing it at certain
Mm-hmm.
conversation so that they could communicate. So it was like so much what we would hope reality TV would be in terms of bringing some reality to it. Um,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
like this is probably some of the more authentic stories that we've gotten to hear through
Mm-hmm.
that. So yeah.
Absolutely. It's just so important. And I know in working with people, like you people need other they need modeling about how to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really powerful when people share who they are and
Yeah.
what that unlocks in other people. I mean, there's
Oh yeah.
and I'm so glad that Tiff put the petition together. I saw it and signed it.
Yeah.
It's just so fundamentally important because there's most of us who are over here trying to be good and open and loving and connected and raise kids who are the same
Right.
and be friends and allies and not do harm and instead create and celebrate. And so it's so important that we just keep going, that
Right.
you know, what's happening at these higher levels is happening. And so how do we find ways to keep going? How do
Right.
we find ways to work around and build something different?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think even when it came to like Aussie storylines that were portrayed, there was just such a missed opportunity to be able to
Mm,
really show what it's like as, especially as a queer Asian person with an immigrant household and that traditional mindset and what
yes.
that really looks like. And I
Hmm.
think it was just such a missed opportunity on that because we do not get enough representation at all. And
Hmm.
really, I cannot think of any other version of that that exists anywhere that I know of. So if anyone
Right.
knows of it, please share. But, like that
Yeah.
was like the first time that I think a lot of people had ever seen what it looks like behind the curtain. And that's why I call it such a missed opportunity because if they don't have the tools to be able to share those stories in the way that they need to be shared, then it
Hmm.
backfires and all you do is you end up re-traumatizing this person and put
Hmm.
through absolute hell, right? And so
Right.
that's essentially what happened. And it's sad, but
Hmm.
I think also we talk about that healing journey and so we can create that opportunity when the time is right. It's
That's
coming,
right.
not yet.
Yes.
It will
Hmm.
come, but
Hmm.
If only we
Hmm.
could help share these things and bring this representation without causing so much harm to the people who are trying to help and be their authentic selves. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I am so with you guys and
Yeah.
stand with you guys in any way I can help.
Yeah.
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 Hmm. Hmm.
And we're exactly on time.
We are. This has been so
Um,
lovely.
it really was. I'm so glad we were able to do this and happy to do it again. We'll just
Yes.
figure out timing at some point. But is there anything else that you wanted to share as we wrap up?
So I guess here's what I want to say is we live in a time where we all know who I'm talking about, need you to believe that you're alone, that you're disconnected, that that your heart, your empathy, that your connection to other human beings are what make you weak or bad. And they wouldn't go after those things if they weren't most powerful. They go after the things that are most powerful. And so you are not alone. We are the river. They're the resistance. We're what's normal. And remember that if it's being attacked, then it's a really beautiful clue about what your greatest power is. And
I,
that's where I'm going to live from.
yes, please. I love that. And I don't have anything else to add to that. And I think that's an amazing ending to this conversation. Thank you so much. And I
Thank
will
you, Sam.
definitely get this posted up and like let's put this out there and let other people hear it who obviously could not tune in live. But I would love to do this again.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for
Um,
having me,
yeah,
Sam.
of course. All right. Well, take care. I'll see you
You
again
too.
soon. And thanks for everyone for joining in.